Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Today I want to talk about my annotation system. So this is sort of a rough draft, if you will. I do not annotate every book that I read. I do not have the time or the patience for that. However, when I know that I want to do a review of a book, or if I'm just having like really intense feelings, I typically want to note what they are and why and where in the book they're occurring. So the first time that I actually annotated a book, it was a book that I hated. It was Odd One Out by Nick Stone, which I read, I think I was in college at the time, and I just really hated it. And I'm not the kind of person that really writes in my books. However, for this one, I was writing paragraphs in the margins all around the pages because I just had so much to say. So a little while ago, after I had started booktube, I thought more about how I wanted to do my dedicated reviews, and so I tried a few different things to see what was working for me. At one point, I had a notebook and I would write notes for whatever I was reading at that time. But then I was like, I really like color coordination, and I feel like a color coordination system would be really helpful for annotating. So I would still write my notes in that notebook. However, I have colorful gel pens that I would use to mark different types of things. But then having the physical book or the ebook and then also having to refer to a notebook on the side, I was like, I feel like this process could be a little more concise. And then Robin told me about transparent sticky notes. So Robin has sent me a pack of those a little while ago, and I started using those. And I like those, but again, I wanted a color coordination system, so I had bought more pens because of the material, so the pen wouldn't smudge. I had to buy different pens. So I was doing that for a while, and I was like, nah, I'm not really loving this. I knew that I was going to have a physical copy of Bloodmarked, and I knew that I was going to want to annotate it. So, side note, if you don't know, I do have a full junk book review of Bloodmarked. I will have that linked in the cards in the description. Spoiler alert, I didn't enjoy it, so if that's gonna bother you, maybe don't watch that. But this book is basically what helped me solidify my annotation system. So these are the transparent sticky notes, and I like using these. I still use these, just not for annotation. I did see on Amazon that they have colorful ones. I think the pack that I saw was blue, pink, and green maybe, but they were also this size, and I felt like this was too big because sometimes it's just a quick little thing that I just wanted to note, and then I don't want to have to cover the entire page with these and then not be able to say everything that I want to say. When I was in grad school, I had been using the little tabs to note different things that I need to know, or like I had to learn APA format, so I would mark off pages and chapters that were important. So I went on Amazon and I found this pack that has many more colors in it, right? So this is nice so that I can find the pages that I'm talking about. However, I still wanted smaller sticky notes so that I could mark my thought on the page without taking up too much of the page, if that makes any sense. So I am going to show you all the tabs that I have, all the sticky notes that I have, and what I've assigned to the different colors. I know that some people will have a separate set of tabs and sticky notes and pens for different books based on the color of the cover, and that's amazing. I don't think I can do that. Like, I love the idea of it, but I feel like that just takes a lot of work. I have a one-size-fits-all system, and I'm gonna show you how that worked out for me when I read Bloodmarked. All right, this is what we're working with here, and even as I was laying this out, there were a few changes that I had to make. So the most important part really, I think, is the tabs. I love having different colors to denote different things, and when I run out of one, I will typically just go ahead and move on to another. So for example, I typically use red as an actual red flag. Like, I feel like that makes sense, right? However, I didn't have red in my little stack of sticky notes, so I ended up using pink to note my red flags, annoyances, and anger. And because I read Bloodmarked and there were so many of them, when I ran out of red, I moved on to the pink ones. Now for orange, this is typically just something that I think is important, something that I think we need to note. So in the pack, it's this really, really light, almost like peachy color, but you can tell that it's orange. So for that, like an example of Bloodmarked was something about how scions weren't allowed to date because you can't mix the lines and blah, 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 which obviously causes issues for the relationship that Bree and Nick have, but If you read the book, you know how that goes anyway, so does it even really matter? No, it doesn't. Now, I actually did not originally have anything for yellow because when I was using a notebook and I was marking different colors for different things, yellow typically doesn't show up that well in a notebook, but with the tabs it works out nicely. And I feel like yellow is typically a color that people like or relate to sunshine and happiness. I personally don't like the color yellow, so I don't know what that says about me, but in the case of my annotation, it means that this is something that I like. When I read Bookmarked, there were only 5 yellow flags that I used, and most of them were people talking shit about Cell, or because I met a character that I liked. So that's what that's for. Moving down the line, we have green. Green is typically for a question. If I have a question about how does this thing work logistically, or why is this person doing XYZ thing when we know it'll have a certain consequence, ask a lot of questions while I'm reading, especially about fantasy worlds, because sometimes I don't always get them right away. So blue is where things start to get a little tricky. So the flags have multiple blue colors, and I don't know if you can tell, but the one right under the green is more of like a teal. And so I have a gel pen that also matches that color. And previously I was using that color to mark a quote in a book that I liked. Now with this read through though, I used this light blue for the quote, but still with the teal flag. I think I'm gonna change that and start using this flag because that makes more sense. They're more alike in color. But the reason I was doing that is because I was using a darker blue for something different that I don't necessarily think I need anymore. It was for things that I wanted to note for my review, but I think that I can just use the orange, the important info one for that. So instead I will be using the darker blue for content warnings. I just like to include content warnings in my reviews to warn people about things, and also because you can include them in your StoryGraph reviews. And I literally do not use Goodreads anymore. I used to link my Goodreads reviews to my StoryGraph review. I don't do that anymore. So content warnings are good to have note of, and then I can use this one since that is a blue. It doesn't match exactly, but I feel like it's close enough. And then I don't know about the teal one. I don't know if I'll create something else for that. Like I said, this is all kind of just me making it up on the spot. And then the last one here is kind of a light purple. I don't know if you can tell, it also kind of looks pink, and I use that for tropes. I genuinely do try to say, you know, if you like XYZ tropes, then you'll probably like this book, even if I don't like it. Sometimes that just doesn't work out for me though, but if there are tropes that I can recognize, I will definitely use those if it is something that I think other people would still enjoy, whether I did or not. A lot of this will probably change at some point, but here we are. The sticky notes also came with this highlighter yellow color, and I don't have anything to use for that just yet, so that's my annotation system. And just in case anyone's curious about what it actually looks like while I'm reading, it's like this. I just like that the little sticky notes don't take up so much of the page like the transparent ones would. So I feel like this works pretty well for now anyway, but yeah. So that is how I annotate. I definitely think that this could potentially change. If you have recommendations for tabs, pens, anything that helps you annotate and will help me refine this process, please send them to me. Like I said, I really do love color coordination. It is one of those things in my brain that just sparks joy. So if you have any recommendations, please let me know. If you annotate, let me know what your process looks like. Do you match your tabs to the color of the cover? I love that so much, but I can't do it. But let me know if you annotate, or if maybe you think you'll start. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I will see you in the next video.